All right, guys, Sean here. As you can probably guess, I'm sat in a car, so that means it's carpool time. It's a 52nd we've done, so we are starting to ramp them up quite a bit. See if we can get a couple of 100 by next year. With me today, some of you will know him, some of you won't, but this guy here is, well, he's an absolute legend, to be fair. It's Mark. Mark's a former Marine, same as myself. He's got a very, very, very interesting story to tell. So I won't actually blab on too much. I'll let Mark kind of tell his story, but it's very, very good. So over to you, Mark, if you're happy to waffle on.
Happy to go. If it's all right with you, I'll give the short version, so we can get down to it.
That's probably a good idea.
Okay, but like as you said, former Royal Marine, born and bred Jana here in Plymouth, and joined straight out of school. Was coming to the end of my compulsory education, GCSEs in the horizon, had this epiphany that once they were over, I either had to go to university, college, or get a job. Decided to get a job, spent a long time thinking about what I wanted to do, what kind of area I wanted to work in. Eventually, settled on the Royal Marines, so I applied when I was 16.
It's not a bad choice, is it?
It's a good choice. It's a good career. Yeah. It's a good career. Applied at 16, joined at 17, February 2001. Fortunate enough to get through in one hit. No injuries. There's going to always be banter in there when you get lads in the car together. Passed that October that year, about 4 weeks after 9/11. So we knew pretty much before we'd even finished training that we were going to be busy as soon as we did. Trained up in early 2002 to go to Afghanistan Operation Jacana. Didn't go for whatever reason. Did Iraq in 2003 on Optelic 1. Afghanistan 2007, and it was 3 months into the tour on Op Herrick 7. Christmas Eve 2007 was out on a foot patrol.
Where were you? Where was it?
I was working out of Helmond in Fob Robinson.
Fob Rob.
Robinson. And just heading back to the Fob to have like 3 days R&R where we could get all our cards and mailies and all that stuff and try and enjoy Christmas. And the section that I was in were given Overwatch for another section, who were then going to peel back into the Fob, return the favour, standard operating. And as I went to take up a fire position and get down on my belly, I knelt on and detonated an improvised explosive device, which eventually resulted in me having, I know you can't see this, both my legs amputated above the knee and my right arm amputated above the elbow. So not the best Christmas I've ever had, if I'm honest. I still get a lot of abuse. I bet you've had worse. I get abuse off the lads for doing half a tour and trying to get home early for Christmas.
Well, I mean, there is ways and means of getting out of theatre. I mean, that is quite an extreme way, to be fair.
Yes, but it worked.
But it did, yeah. So obviously that happened, and what was going through your head at the time? Where were you? Obviously, I can imagine your mind was just racing, or were you unconscious?
No, I was conscious throughout the entire thing.
Okay.
It was. It's okay, so anybody watching or listening who has ever been in a traumatic incident, like a car crash or a fall from a height or anything like that, will understand what I'm saying. It's very surreal. So you imagine I've just now on an improvised explosive device. Once all the sand and dust are cleared, I look down, my legs are missing, there's blood and claret and fluid pouring out my body. Then I notice my arm. It's chaotic, right? And I know, because of the way we're trained, that none of my friends were going to be rushing in to help me, because we're trained not to do that because of the risk of other devices. So I'm lying in this big hole in the ground, which when I read the report was 12 feet deep by 15 feet around. Not thinking anyone's going to come to save me, watching all this stuff, pouring out my body. But weirdly, it all felt very surreal. It didn't feel like it was actually happening, because
like it was a dream almost.
It felt like a dream, but I wasn't in any pain either. It was just really like intense pins and needles throbbing in my 3 damaged limbs, and I was very relaxed about the whole thing. I probably didn't appear that way to the rest of my section, but inside my head, I was like, you know what? if I die now, and I never thought I would. I had so much confidence in the blokes that I was with that I never thought I would die. But if I did, then I was happy with that. You know, I thought this is an honourable way to die.
Yeah.
I'll die, quote unquote hero for doing, you know, what we were doing.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I want to be remembered.
Fair enough.
Now, some of the weird feelings and thoughts and emotions that I had. The first thing I thought about, I had a daughter who was less than 3 years old, and I always, like, it's hard to explain. A million things go through your mind in like the space of 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, if I survive this, which I really believed that I would straight away from the get-go, how's this going to affect her?
Yeah.
Because when I pick her up from school, I'm going to be the freak with no legs and the freak with no arm, and is she going to get bullied? Is she going to get picked on? So I instantly felt this guilt feeling.
Okay.
And then my next thought was all the guys around me. More guilt, because I think, well, I've put them in a situation now where if the enemy come over with a bunch of AK-47s, people might die, and that's my fault because they're trying to save me. Then I felt shame, because you know how it is, we're trained, right, to the highest level, to operate at the highest level and go toe-to-toe with anybody and have a very, 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 very good chance of always coming off with the upper hand. And now I've just been beaten by a piece of metal in the ground, and I felt stupid and ashamed, and all these crazy thoughts going through my mind in split seconds. You know, and it was
just
not
rattled through.
Yeah, and it's not stuff when I tell people about it. It's not stuff they expect me to say. They think, "Oh, weren't you scared? Weren't you frightened? Weren't you terrified?" And I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I felt guilty. I felt ashamed, but I felt confident that I was going to be okay because of the people that I was out there with." And it's bizarre, but you know, I won't go through the whole story, but I was saved. I was evacuated. I did die.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. Yeah, because I do know. Yeah, you were on the Waka Waka on the way back, wasn't it?
Yeah, as the helicopter landed, that's the last thing I can remember. I blacked out, which, if any of you have ever died before, you'll understand this. It's just like falling asleep. Honestly, it was just like I felt really, really tired and drained, and my eyes closed, and I just felt like I was having an afternoon nap.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I remember. And when I got put on the back of the helicopter, the medics went through their, I guess, checklist, signs of like, you know, pulse, you know, didn't have one, intravenous lines for fluids, all my veins had collapsed because of the blood loss. And then they put an oxygen mask on me, which if I was breathing would have steamed up, pretty much like these windows are doing in this car. But it didn't. So they were like, this guy's dead. And there was another guy injured. And
from the same incident, or was he from
he had shrapnel wounds in his back. So for those that don't know, the way priorities are casualties are prioritized in a wartime situation like that is if you've got a guy that's dead and a guy that's dying, you focus all your attention on the guy that's dying because you don't want two guys that are dead. So I showed no signs of life, so they said, he's dead, leave him, work on this guy. When the medics walked past me to get some equipment to go work on the other guy, they saw my eye flutter, which meant that my heart was still beating. So he alerted some more medics. They came over to me, and 3 days prior to this incident, whoever makes the decisions in the army or military medical field had cleared a new technique to be used, where if your veins have collapsed and you can't get intravenous lines in the regular way, you can take a drill and you can drill into somebody's tibia and fibia and put intravenous lines down.
I never knew that.
Okay, but you can see the obvious problem. I don't have a tibia or fibia because they've been blasted off by this IED. So these medics are in the back and they're like, and I imagine when they train, they're in quite a sterile environment in a nice room. And now they're on a Chinook that's going left to right. It's trying to avoid RPGs and small arms fire. There's sand and dust everywhere. They've got these you know, it's not the ideal situation.
No.
And then they've got to make a decision because nothing they've been trained to do is possible with this casualty. So what they did was they took these two drills, Charlie and Millsy, the medics, one went in through the front, one went in through the back, and they drilled into my hips.
Okay.
And they put the line in, and they said in a couple of minutes, it had bitten, the fluids were going in, and then I was awake again. They brought me back from death on the back of a Chinook, flew me to a place called Camp Bastion, took me to the field hospital, and you can imagine, you know, that my limbs were not clean cut. They were just torn,
Ripped.
shredded.
Yeah,
And so the surgeons, they were a lot longer, my legs, but all the flesh had died. So they do these tests where they find out where the flesh is healthy.
Okay.
Kind of like if you press on your skin and you see the blood come back to it.
Yeah.
And they decided that it was above my knees, where they are now, that they need to amputate
Mhm.
to keep the healthy
Yeah,
flesh.
yeah.
Otherwise, you get back home and you've got to have revision
Right,
surgery.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they just all 3 limbs, wrapped me up, put me on a plane, and sent me to Selly Oak Hospital in Birmingham, where I got there about 4 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day.
Bloody hell.
Yeah,
It's,
it was intense.
yeah.
Yeah,
So from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day, you've gone from battlefield, injured, Hilo, Bastion, Birmingham.
Birmingham. Yeah, and I didn't wake up until the 28th of December for about 15 seconds. I just remember, you know, being lying. I knew I was lying down.
Yeah.
I had no energy, and I was trying to
Brilliant.
open my eyes, and it took all the strength I had to try, and I couldn't do it. But I could hear people around me,
Yeah.
and I think because of the medication and the drugs I was on, it was just echoing. So every time someone said something once, it echoed like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
could recognise the voices, and they saw me trying to say something through an oxygen mask. So took it off and then brought me back into gradually over. I think I did a week in intensive care. They gradually reduced that medication and brought me back out into the real world
Bloody hell.
to see what was going to happen, because no one
Yeah.
knew, because I had a lot of open wounds, sand and dirt had been blasted into there, so I was a high infection risk.
Yeah.
They had to monitor me around the clock for that first week to make sure I didn't die in the middle of the night.
Well, you were the first triple amputee as well, weren't you?
I was the
So
first
obviously-
triple amputee, so no one knew what to do
No.
with me.
No.
And after a week in intensive care, they gave me a single man room, because I was what they call high dependency,
Yeah.
needed round the clock medical care, and they continued to gradually wean me off the medication, bring me back into the real world, and then I was quite keen to start physiotherapy.
Yeah.
You can see there's a big scar on my hand, so I only had the use of 2 fingers and what I could use in my thumb, because of a big hole in my hand. So like sitting up in bed, there's a bar above my bed trying to pull myself up, and you know, it's bizarre. Do you remember those things, these toys when we were kids called Weebles?
We was
You
all
just
over the door fold down.
Weebles were, so I would sit up in bed, but without legs, I would just go whoomph and just roll over like a Weeble. And I had to retrain. You know, I knew what I had to do.
Yeah.
You know, retrain all my core, and they explained it to me. They said, when you get prosthetics eventually, you don't have calves, you don't have working thighs effectively, or hamstrings. Everything's going to come from your glutes, your lower back, and your hips. So you need to retrain all these muscles,
Yeah.
especially your core, before you get the prosthetics,
Yeah.
because you want to hit the ground running. So we started doing some very, very, very light physiotherapy. You know, like with a table tennis racket and a balloon, and I'd sit by my bed and just tap it, just reach
Okay.
out and try not to do the weeble wobble thing,
Yeah.
and fall over and just keep my
Keep
core.
us, yeah.
You know, and I don't know if any of it was effective, but from a mental point of view, it helped me feel like I was straight away just boom, let's go,
Getting
let's make
straight back
progress.
out to it, yeah.
And it was bizarre, you know, because we're going to talk about mental health and everything, and people always say to me, "Did you not wake up and be like, I can't do this?" And I didn't. I don't know what it was. I woke up and I was like, okay, cool. This is what's happened. There's nothing I can do about this.
Nope.
I can pray that they grow back, but they're not going to. I'm not a lizard.
No, axolotl.
So what can I do about it? The only thing I can do is set myself some goals, develop some sort of plan, and work on that plan.
And do you think that developing a plan for yourself and looking to the future and where you want it to be, do you think that actually helped your mental health as such?
Yeah, well,
If you
I'll go definitely go into detail about that later.
Yeah, okay.
But what I was going to say was in those initial days, and everyone's individual, right? But
Yeah.
I always remember lying there in bed, and a long time ago, when I was based at Stonehouse before I was injured, I was getting charged for something. I don't know what I'd done. I think I'd been out on the piss or something, and I was in trouble, and I was in the RSM's office.
Bootlegs don't do stuff
I
like
know.
that.
And I had cut the lining out my beret.
Right.
And the RSM hated it.
Yeah,
and he could just see if you'd done it or not. And I was in front of him getting told off, and then he went, "Take your beret off." And basically he made me go and get a new one, this, that, and the other. Anyway, when I'm in hospital, in recovery, he came to visit me.
Oh, okay.
And he brought me a beret. He remembered me.
Yeah.
I was a young Marine. No, I don't, and it just blew me away. I'm thinking, how can this bloke remember who I am? He was an RSM. I was 2 years into my career, a gobby little Marine, nobody in the grand scheme of things. But this guy remembered me. He remembered taking my beret, and he's made this trip all the way up here to give me a new one.
Did it have a lining?
It did. It did. I know. But it had a massive effect on me. I thought, wow, you know, this is. I can't believe this guy remembers me. And I sat there for a little while. I can't remember how old the Corps was back then, maybe 348 years old or something. And I thought, we've got this history, right, and this reputation of being elite and high standard and, you know, going out and doing the job. And all right, I'm in this situation now, but I've got 300 plus years of heritage that I felt was resting on my shoulders at that point. And I thought, I'm not going to let the team down. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna crimp. I'm gonna set myself goals. I'm gonna stay positive, and we're gonna overcome this. And the difficult thing was back then I was the only one. There were 2 guys before me who were injured in Iraq, which I didn't know about at the time, back in 2005. But there were no other amputees I knew of in the Corps. It hit so early on, and it was lonely. You know, I thought, Christ, this is going to be difficult. So I've got to try and do this, figure this all out on my own. So I start talking about goal setting. I start setting myself all these goals. This is in the first 6 weeks when I'm in hospital. And all my team, you know, my doctors, nurses, physios, all the welfare officers in my family, I didn't find this out till many years later, but I'm telling them all this stuff that I want to achieve. And I know now they were humouring me. They were like, oh, okay, Mark, okay. Because they told me years later, probably about 6 years after, when I bumped into one of my physios, that when they would have meetings about me, they said I was suffering from what's called post-traumatic euphoria, which is when you go through a traumatic incident and you wake up and you're just overly positive and you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then all of a sudden you crash and reality kicks in and you just spiral down.
And that's what they were waiting for.
They were waiting for it, but it never happened. It never happened. I had 2 blips in my recovery. 3.5 weeks post-injury, a doctor came in my room who was, this is in 2008, January, 33 years this guy had been amputating people's limbs. And he came in and basically, non-emotionally told me, get ready for a wheelchair, mate. You'll never be able to walk. I don't know anyone with just one leg missing who has any success with prosthetics. So start getting prepped. That knocked me.
Yeah, but it did.
And then the first time, probably 5 weeks post-injury, they let me out of hospital. I was in a wheelchair. I went over to a welfare flat my family were in. Big tower block. They pushed me in the front door, no problem, in the communal entrance. Pushed me in the front door of the flat, no problem. But I couldn't access any of the rooms because I have a one-handed wheelchair. It's extra wide on one side because you've got to go forward, backwards, left and right with one hand. So I had to sit in the corridor. I had to eat while all my family were eating in the front room watching telly. I had to pee in a milk bottle. And I just felt isolated and shit. And then we eventually we figured out how to get me into the bedroom at night because I was allowed to stay at the hospital for the first time. And I had obviously, in my wheelchair in my hospital room, I'd brushed my teeth and shaved and saw myself like this. And in that bedroom was the first time I wheeled past a full-length mirror. And I used to be 6'2". I used to weigh at my heaviest 16 stone, lift a lot of weights. And there I was, 9 stone 1, really gaunt, clothes like, you know, flapping and hanging off me, no legs, 3 feet tall, and I just cried all night. I was with Becky, she was my fiance at the time, and I just cried all night in that flat and said, look, I can't do this. You know, I'm all positive and I want to do this, and I've just seen what I look like in the mirror, and I, you know, I used to be one of them who thought he was a pretty boy. I'd wear tight t-shirts and lift loads of weights and highlight my hair and wear fake tan and all that stupid stuff that you do when you're younger. And now I looked basically like a skeleton with a bit of skin on.
And you thought your life was just...
And I was like, look, I've gone from this 24-year-old Royal Marine out there doing the job, you know, being a good guy and fit as hell, to this at 24. And I've got like 70, 80 years of my life left, or even more. And I just thought, how am I going to do that? I'm not even a quarter of the way from my life, and I've got to spend the rest of it like this, with people pushing me in a chair or washing me in a bath, I thought back then, you know, and feeding me and all these things that I thought back then they'd have to do forever. So yeah, I just spent the entire night in bed with her crying. But I woke up the next morning. I think that helped. It kind of
Well,
like
they do say crying is it
flushed
gets it out, doesn't it? It's,
purged it out. Got up the
yeah.
next day and excuse my language, I was just like, fuck it, let's go. And I
Love
went
it.
back to the hospital. I'm like, I've set these goals. You lot are going to help me whether you like it or not. We're going to smash it out of the park. And those were the only 2 times during my recovery that I had a blip within those first 6 weeks. Everything after that, it was all, here's a goal, here's a plan, this is what we're going to do, let's go do this. And I think that really helped.
Yeah.
I think it's
Something
really
to focus on, maybe.
keeping me busy,
Yeah.
focusing on the positive, pushing myself to be a little bit better every day. And I always feel like I do this a disservice because I always, whenever I talk about this, just skim over my rehab and I make it sound like it was quite easy. It was disgusting.
Yeah,
It was
I can
horrible.
imagine.
It was
I
one
bet
of
it was
the,
absolutely honking.
the only thing I can compare most of it to is when you're coming up to the last mile of your 30 miler, right? And there's blood coming out your boots and you want to cry and your back's covered in welts and chafing and you just, your knees feel like they're going to snap and you just want to either cry or murder somebody. That kind of state. That's what it was like for me going through rehab. But I just, having those goals and those people around me, just, I never sat there for too long to think like that. And I was just like, go, 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 go,
Yeah,
go,
yeah,
go. Just always moving forward.
Just batting on.
And it was brilliant, you know. And I think that was a massive help for me.
You think that making the goals and looking at how you can get yourself back again as such, that was what you reckon helped?
Yeah. And it was hard because I was the first triple amputee.
Yeah.
So although they'd done 1 or 2 things with double amputees, they
It
never.
was still different because you're a triple.
Right. So sometimes it got frustrating, but I looked at it as a challenge, which made it exciting,
Yeah.
which then didn't make it so annoying. So I'd be like,
Yeah,
okay,
I suppose.
cool.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And you know, it sounds corny, but the whole, you know, when I'd say something and people would be like, oh, you need to manage your expectations. I don't think you're going to do that. I'd go back to my room and be like, fuck you,
Yeah.
I'm doing it. And it was just a case of figuring it out. And we're lucky, like we're recording this on your phone. We can whack it up to the internet or whatever later. So I could get on my phone and do all this research about prosthetics, amputees, amputations, ways to build my muscles.
Yeah.
I could do it all in my spare time and be proactive. And if I didn't have an answer to anything, I could find it
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah.
And that was another huge positive. You know,
Yeah.
I could just, there was nothing really that I couldn't figure out because I had that help and I had the phone.
A phone
and
to
I
be
could go
able
on
to
the
do
internet
stuff,
and
yeah,
find the
yeah,
answers,
yeah.
you know. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I can well imagine. And how was the family with you at the time? Obviously with Becky and your daughter and stuff. But I'm guessing they were a major help.
I think it was all a case of, I've never really spoke to them and asked like when they would go back to the flats and everything in the evening. I was in the hospital,
Yeah.
what they did, how they dealt with it, who was okay, who struggled.
Okay.
But whenever we were together,
Yeah.
it was just a case of if they were feeling bad one day and I was feeling great, I could drag them up. And if I was feeling bad one day and they were feeling great, they would drag me
Drag you
up.
up.
And we just bounced off each other
Okay.
the whole time do it.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Well, it
worked.
seems to have worked.
Nobody. I didn't realise I was doing it back then. I do now because I do it consciously. But the people I have around me, I can't be dealing with morale vampires.
Okay.
So people that say, oh, I don't know about that, or that would be difficult, you can't do that, I'm like, see ya,
Yeah.
and I get rid of them. And I think I was doing that in the beginning, but didn't realise it.
realise
But
you doing
there
it.
wasn't really a need for it because everyone was like, yeah, okay, let's look at this, let's look at that, let's try
Yeah,
this, let's try
yeah.
that. None of the whole, oh, I don't know, except for that doctor.
That one
And
doctor.
literally, he come in, told me that, turned around, walked out, and I'd never seen him again. I
What
was
would you
just like, you're out of my life.
If he was to see this, what would you like to say? Anything you'd like to say to him?
No, so I have met somebody who knows him
Oh, okay.
probably about 3 years ago when I was in Singapore,
Yeah.
and he tells me that the guy was taken off the military ward. Apparently he told a couple of people that came after me,
Okay.
and somebody complained, so he was looked at into and they took him off the military ward.
Ah, right.
And I don't know why they thought it was okay with old people, but they put him in the geriatrics ward.
Yeah.
But I honestly, people ask me all the time, and I do not think he did it maliciously.
No.
And I don't
if
think he
it's-
did it.
That's what he thought. That's what he thought. I suppose.
Yeah,
isn't it,
I
at the
don't
end of the
think
day?
he had an ulterior motive either, like to
Nah.
try and motivate me. I think for 30 odd years, he's been doing this. It's just like checking your email. He just walked in and went, right, okay, this is his notes. Let's look at that. Listen, mate, I'm in a bit of a rush.
Yeah.
You're never going to walk again.
Yeah.
Need anything? Give me a call. And he walked, you know, and I honestly think it was just the way he was.
He's probably they're kind of numb to it now, I suppose, and he's
Exactly. Yeah, non-emotional.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't hold a grudge against the guy or anything like that, and
No,
it didn't
fair enough.
particularly motivate me in any way. I just figured out
just
other
one
ways
of
to
those,
do that.
just a blip.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. It's his opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with it.
Opinions are like
So-
arseholes, aren't they? Unfortunately,
Yes, they are,
everyone's
yeah.
got one.
Yeah.
So obviously you've recovered, you've gone through all the physio and everything. So now where you are now, how do you see your mental health? Does it ever come back to affect you in any way, shape or form? Do you have moments, if that makes sense?
So
Obviously it affects you day to day because of the mobility side of
The mo-
things, but
yeah.
I mean like mental health
for me, it's more of a physical thing
Yeah.
than a mental thing. It's not. I wouldn't say it's affected me, but the thing that gets me the most is the way the mobility thing has slowed me down.
yeah.
So whereas before I used to be able to run, jump, climb,
Yeah.
do everything quickly, even just having one extra, my other arm would help a lot. But so that frustrates me a lot. The way I have
Yeah.
to slow things down and just accept the fact that I'm not as quick or as mobile as I was
As you-
before,
yeah.
and just crack on with it. But on top of what we talked about earlier, the post-traumatic euphoria, I did a bit of research, and I think it's an actual thing now in America. It's called post-traumatic growth,
Okay.
which is when people come out of the other side of a traumatic incident stronger than when they were before.
Okay.
My physio explained it to me. He said it's like alcohol, and it amplifies who you actually are. So if you're an asshole and you
right,
want to
okay.
get shit-faced,
You're
you're
gonna-
still a bigger
yeah.
asshole. If you're the
Yeah.
nice, I love you, hug me type thing, normally every day, and you get pissed, and you amplify that.
Yeah.
And they said post-traumatic growth or trauma in itself amplifies that.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not, but you know,
There's logic with it, I suppose.
that's what they told me, and I kind of feel like that's the direction I've gone in.
Yeah.
I started reading a lot more, doing more personal development,
Yeah.
studying things like neuro-linguistic programming, spending more time working on my mind than I did on my body. I've balanced it out now, but I found it really helped. And I've been very fortunate in that I've never been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress,
Okay.
and I don't think that it's an issue for me.
No.
You know, we talked off air
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah,
I've had one blip, but I see all the literature about it
Mhm.
through social media and everything, about people explaining when they've got mental health issues, how it makes them feel.
Yeah.
And I really struggled to relate to it for years and years. And I thought, why can't I understand that? Because I would look at people, and I know everyone's individual. And I
Yeah,
look at someone and think, well, I've been through quite a traumatic time,
Just a little bit.
but I can't understand what you're saying. I don't understand the way you say you feel numb, or nothing interests you, or you've got no motivation. I can't compute it. And I would see it pop up every now and again. And then, so what we know, so this Christmas Eve, in like, what is it, next week, Christmas Eve today?
Next Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be my 12-year anniversary, or my bang-iversary, as we call it.
Yeah.
And I think it was last year, it was after Christmas, and I don't suffer around Christmas time either. I'm more grateful than I am, remorseful. I appreciate the fact that I'm alive, and rather than dwell on the fact that I was injured.
Yeah.
But I was just driving around after Christmas, and I started to have these symptoms that I'd read about. Like, I was just driving, to work one day, I'm like, what's the point? What's the point in my life? I don't feel like I'm doing anything, everything's harder than it should be. Why am I here?
Yeah.
And I started to have a lot of the dark thoughts. I never had it before in a decade that I'd read about. And it was quite scary.
Yeah.
I went home and I told my wife about it. I'm like, I literally would be driving along, and I'd have these thoughts about death or, suicide or something. And whereas I thought that would scare me, it didn't. It was kind of like this doctor telling. It was just non-emotional. I was just like, so what?
Oh well.
Oh, so what?
Yeah.
I've died once. It actually wasn't that bad. It just felt peaceful and calm, and I drifted off like I was having an afternoon nap. So what's the big deal? And it was horrible. And it took me about 6 weeks to shake. I did reach out and get help.
Right. Okay.
I went to my friend Jamie Sanderson. He's got a charity called Rock to Recovery.
Yep.
And I'd heard about them. I knew what they did.
Yeah, they do amazing work, don't they?
It was just up the road from me.
Yeah.
And I went, right, I'm going to reach out, because I know a lot of what you guys do at Men's Allowed is raising. I as an individual, I don't care what people think.
Yeah,
If I needed help, I'm not going to sit there and say, you shouldn't be doing that, Mark. You're a big roughy tufty Marine. If I need it, I need it, and I'm going to reach out and ask for it.
Yeah.
You know, I told everyone I cried my eyes out. I'm not ashamed of any of that stuff.
No, definitely not.
And so
that's
I
the
reached
big
out.
thing. That's what we do. Males Allowed it is just letting people know that it's all right. It's okay.
And it is. It's fine.
Absolutely.
I don't know where the whole. I guess it's just maybe a generational thing or what with the whole stigma, but I don't subscribe to it. If I want to cry, I'll cry.
Yeah.
And if you judge me, fuck you.
It's your issue.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I needed help, and I was confused because I didn't know what was happening. I just know it didn't feel great, and so I reached out and I went and saw him and I got the help, and it was great.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very fortunate. It was one blip, and I don't know if it will happen again in the future. I hope not, because it was horrible. I didn't know what to do, who to speak to, where to go, what was happening. But over the years, fortunately, I'd seen this stuff and I knew resources and organisations. So I was just like, listen, this is what's happening. Does this sound like the kind of thing you normally deal with? And they're like, yes, come see us. So I'm like, sweet, let's do it. Drove up, had a couple of sessions with Rock to Recovery, and it sorted me out.
Yeah.
You know, even just the initial session of just like, you know, unload and just on this.
How did you at that initial kind of getting to a point when you wanted to reach out? How difficult was it getting over that bit? If that makes sense. We find that obviously a lot of people struggle with that reaching out bit.
Yeah.
I know you're obviously saying that you do that now, obviously, yeah. But did you find it initially? Did you find it a struggle? Did you find it a little bit?
It wasn't the easiest thing in the world for me to do.
But once you'd done it,
it was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And do you know what you got to do? You know, what I did was think outside myself. So I have 3 children, and I have a wife. You know, I've got a lot of good friends, and I just thought my behaviour might possibly be impacting them now. So, you know, if I'm good, everyone around me can be good. So I need to sort myself out, and I had to essentially take a little bit of responsibility.
Okay.
You know, and just go
Get
out
a
and
grip
do
of
it.
it.
Yeah, I don't like that saying. But yeah, I know what you're saying. You know, we had that conversation just now about in Costa and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I knew it was the right thing to do. And I don't think anyone should suffer. It's unnecessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's unnecessary to sit there and suffer on your own in silence because of some bullshit where people say, "Oh, you're a bloke." And we said this phrase that we both don't like. Man up. Okay, this is not me showing off or anything. Okay, but I was a Royal Marine for 10 years. Trained as a bodyguard. I spent 6 years working as a nightclub doorman. You know, I had 12. I boxed for the Marines at heavyweight, kickbox, Thai box, do jiu-jitsu now. So I like to think that I'm a alpha male, if you want to call it that. I love doing manly things and just, you know, getting out there and doing that. And I don't have any problem reaching out and asking for help when I need it, because you can't do anything on your own.
Yeah, sometimes you do need a bit of help. You need somebody, even if it's just a shoulder to cry on.
If you want to lose weight and you don't know anything about training or eating, guess what? You go and find a nutritionist or a coach and they help you lose weight. So why is it any different with your mental health? Yeah. Your mental health and your physical health are intrinsically linked.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
my big thing is fizz.
Yeah.
Hitting the gym, training.
You do smash the fizz
a fair bit. That's my thing. That's how some people it's music, some people it's yoga, some people it's dance or drama. My thing is training.
Yeah.
Even if I've got no goal, just to go in there,
just go
smash it out, release some endorphins, release some stress, some energy, and then I'm just on cloud 9 for the rest of the day. You know, and I think that's a big thing as well, is people discovering their own individual thing.
Yeah, and that's it. Like you say, everyone's an individual and everyone has their own thing. Like
as long as it's positive.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Like drinking, drug, don't go down that road. You know, that's not going to help anyone long term.
No.
But a positive outlet.
Yeah. See, my positive outlet is going to the beach.
The beach,
I'll
right.
just sit and
Nature.
listen to the waves. Yeah, I love nature.
Yeah.
You know, Dartmoor, when I used to live up here, used to love it.
Mhm.
So that was my go-to place.
Right.
Obviously yours is Fizz. Next year is going to be Fizz for me, because we're doing a couple of things males allowed wise, so I've got to lose this
Right.
this gut, unfortunately. But yeah,
We're getting around the right people. So males allowed, right? So you meet, you talk, you chat.
Yeah.
You got like-minded people around who are going through similar things. You understand each other, and they can vibe with each other.
Yeah.
That's massively important
that's it.
too.
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely, it is. I mean, they helped me in my kind of dark times, and I'm doing the same thing now. And obviously, you've kind of been through it all quite extensively, I would say. Yeah, so it's your story is just absolutely fucking amazing. And I've got so much admiration for you. I really are. I mean, obviously I follow you on social media as best I possibly can. And yeah, it's just phenomenal. I mean, for people who don't know Mark, now they do.
Follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, get it done. The guy is honestly absolute. I picked him up this morning. We've been chatting all morning, and obviously doing this now. And it's just been an absolute pleasure. It really has. He's fantastic. Unfortunately, he is a sprog. So the next time we meet up, he will have to get the
I
Watson.
would have joined at 11 if they would have let me, but I couldn't. So
So is there anything else you want to say about anything?
I just want to say to any blokes or girls, anyone out there that is watching this, who is struggling, you know, going through things in their head which, like I just said, were confusing. I didn't understand. I didn't know what's going on. People around you don't seem to understand what you're saying. They can't comprehend what you're going through. Just reach out. And that may not be, you know, picking up the phone and ringing an organisation or a charity. It might be speaking to your best mate. You know, whatever it is, reach out to somebody and say, listen, this is what I'm struggling with. Can you help me with something? You know, and then, I wish I could just like scream it to somebody. Like there's just,
Yeah.
it helped me massively, and I have a lot of people in my circle of friends, all 90% veterans, been to war, seen action, seen some nasty stuff. They reach out. And another point that I've just thought about now is that you don't have to be in that bracket to be someone who's suffering to reach out. So a lot of people think that, oh, PTSD, that's only military veterans who have seen combat. That's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
That anyone can go through that. Look what paramedics do, firemen do, policemen do, nurses, doctors, you know, anyone. You could be a random civilian walking your dog and come across something very traumatic that you're the first person on scene, you got to help it out, and you struggle with it, right? That doesn't mean that when you start to, you know, when you do start to struggle, you shouldn't reach out. You should. So anybody who's going through anything, stress, anxiety, whatever it may be, don't let it fester. Nip it in the bud ASAP. Figure out.
So early intervention is key.
Yes,
Definitely.
it is.
Sooner you say something. There is a lot to be said about the whole problem shared is a problem halved. It definitely helps. Just voicing it. Sometimes people just need somebody to listen. That person who's listening doesn't even have to say anything. Can literally just sit there and let somebody vent. Like you were saying earlier in one of your sessions, you just go there.
I just went at it.
Just belt fed him for like an hour or whatever it was, and then you came when you good as go.
Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all people need.
If I can't convince you, read a book called Battle Scars by Jason Fox from SAS Who Dares Wins. Former Royal Marine, former Special Forces. He is very, very open about the struggles that he had. And you know, you don't get much more alpha male than that. You know what I mean? A sergeant in the Special Boat Service, you know, who's written a book about some of his struggles. So if I can't convince you, that book will convince you that it's okay not to be okay.
There you go, guys. You've heard it from Mark. If he can reach out, you guys can. And anybody else can. That's just, especially Males Allowed, that's what we're there for. We want to help everybody. We want to do as much as we possibly can. So on that note, I think we'll call it a day there, and we'll have to get you back to wherever I'm taking you now.
I do not know.
No?
McDonald's is over there.
Should we go and do McDonald's? I think we'll go and do McDonald's. But yeah, guys, it is okay not to be okay. Just remember that. Mark, a massive appreciation for coming there. I really appreciate it, mate. I really do. Again, follow him on Instagram, wherever you find him. Just all you got to do is Google his name. He's bloody everywhere. Yeah, so everyone, enjoy Christmas. I hope you're a little bit more organised than me, because I still haven't finished all my shopping yet. I'll probably be going tomorrow. How about yourself? How are you? Have you?
Oh,
you all-
one more thing.
One more thing. One more thing to
I
go.
can't say what it is in
Well,
case my
obviously.
wife sees this before I buy it.
We won't say anything. It's all right. So yeah, enjoy Christmas. All the best for the new year, and I'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
Merry Christmas.